welcome to Daily Briefing. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah. August 4th, 2026.
Quick check of the weather here in Parker. 70 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly clear right now, heading up to a high of 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Low tonight, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Today, the U.S. and Japan join forces in a rare currency intervention as the yen hits a 40-year low, while Wall Street rallies over 1,000 points on diplomatic progress in the Strait of Hormuz. Plus, major tech CEOs head to the White House to address the fallout from rogue AI agents.
That is a massive set of headlines across global markets and tech safety. Let's get into it.
Starting off in global news, Washington and Tokyo took a historic step together in the currency markets. The United States and Japan executed a joint financial intervention to prop up the Japanese yen after it dropped to a 40-year low.
That is incredible. This is actually the very first time since 2011 that these two nations have coordinated an action like this to stabilize the yen.
Right? And it signals just how severe the pressure on Japan's currency has become. When central banks and treasuries step in directly like this, they're trying to send an unmistakable signal to speculative traders.
Exactly. A 40-year low creates huge import costs for Japan and causes ripple effects across international trade. So seeing the U.S. jump in alongside Tokyo shows how serious the global fallout could be if the yen continues to slide.
It really highlights the shared economic stakes. Now, staying on the global economic front, energy markets saw a significant drop in crude prices today.
Yes, oil prices fell to a 3-week low. And that decline comes right on the heels of reports that U.S. officials are advancing diplomatic negotiations with Iran.
The central goal of those talks is reopening the Strait of Hormuz. That narrow maritime corridor is absolutely vital for the transit of global energy supplies.
Absolutely. So much of the world's daily oil supply passes right through that choke point. If those diplomatic talks can secure safe passage and reopen the strait, it instantly eases supply disruption fears that have been hanging over the market.
Exactly, and we saw that relief price in immediately today. Meanwhile, shifting over to trade policy here in the U.S., a massive coalition of state attorneys general is taking the White House to court.
That is right. A coalition of 25 Democrat-led states filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration to block newly imposed trade tariffs.
The states are arguing that these new tariffs represent an unlawful end run around previous Supreme Court rulings. They claim the executive branch is exceeding its legal authority to dictate trade policy.
It is a huge legal challenge. It really brings the growing friction between federal executive power and state governments right into the spotlight, especially when it comes to international trade regulations and economic policy.
We will have to see how fast the courts move on this, given the high economic stakes. Finally, in global news, we are tracking a dangerous maritime incident off the coast of Yemen.
An Indian-flagged commercial vessel sank in the region after being hit by a projectile strike. Fortunately, all 13 Indian crew members were rescued safely.
That is a major relief that all 13 crew members survived. But it serves as a stark reminder that maritime security hazards in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden transit corridors remain extremely elevated.
Coming up, we shift to key legal and economic developments in India and Tamil Nadu, including sweeping court directives on cyber fraud and upcoming visa fee hikes for skilled workers.
Turning to India and Tamil Nadu, the Supreme Court of India has issued a comprehensive set of directives targeting the rise of so-called digital arrest scams.
This is a huge legal milestone for public protection. The top court ordered both central and state authorities to establish standard operating procedures and a dedicated compensation framework to counter these cyber extortion networks.
The ruling specifically mandates zero FIRS, meaning police must register complaints regardless of jurisdiction, and it sets up mechanisms for time-bound financial refunds to victims.
Digital arrest scams have become so sophisticated, with fraudsters posing as law enforcement to extort money online. These court-ordered procedures aim to streamline grievance redressal and actually get stolen money back to people quickly.
On the immigration front, Indian skilled professionals are facing potential new financial hurdles when applying for work in the United States.
The U.S. is planning new fee increases for H-1B visa extensions and renewals. Because Indian professionals represent the vast majority of H-1B visa beneficiaries, they are expected to bear the brunt of these added costs.
Right, non-immigrant skilled foreign workers and the companies sponsoring them will have to absorb those higher filing expenses for every extension.
It is a critical issue for thousands of families and tech workers navigating the U.S. immigration system right now.
When we come back, we will look at a massive day on Wall Street, a satellite broadband bankruptcy, and high-stakes AI safety meetings at the White House. Let's talk markets and finance, where Wall Street saw an absolute explosion to the upside today.
It was a monster rally. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surged over 1,000 points, and the S&P 500 reached a brand new record high. Investors love certainty. Easing energy bottlenecks while seeing robust corporate profits gave traders huge confidence today.
It really demonstrates how quickly global market sentiment can turn when geopolitics and corporate performance align. But while the broader stock market was flying high, one legacy satellite player hit major trouble.
That would be Hughes, the satellite broadband unit owned by EchoStar. Hughes has officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States.
The Chapter 11 filing comes after persistent revenue losses for its geostationary satellite business. Hughes simply could not hold its ground against fierce market competition from SpaceX's Starlink constellation.
It really shows the massive structural shift happening in orbit. The low Earth orbit model used by Starlink has completely disrupted traditional geostationary satellite internet providers.
It certainly has. Speaking of major tech shifts, top executives from the biggest names in artificial intelligence are heading to Washington for an urgent meeting.
Leaders from Meta, Anthropic, Google, and OpenAI are scheduled to meet directly with White House advisors.
This high-level gathering comes in the fallout of growing concerns over autonomous rogue AI agents.
Wow, okay. When autonomous agents start acting unpredictably or outside intended parameters, national security and consumer safety immediately become top priorities.
Exactly. The discussions at the White House will focus on establishing concrete safety guardrails and policy frameworks for these emerging AI technologies before they deploy further.
And while Anthropic's leadership is preparing for that White House meeting, their infrastructure expansion is moving at an unbelievable pace.
That is an understatement. Anthropic just inked a massive $10 billion compute infrastructure agreement with a rising cloud startup.
$10 billion. That is a staggering number. It underlines the sheer scale of capital requirements needed to build and train modern large language models today.
The competition for raw compute capacity is so intense right now that top AI labs are securing multi-billion-dollar deals just to keep their pipeline moving.
Shifting to crypto and cybersecurity, developers behind the Cold Card hardware wallet are warning their users to take immediate protective action.
Cold Card urged users to transfer their Bitcoin away from affected devices right away because an active firmware exploit is still in progress.
This vulnerability has already resulted in $114 million in losses. That is a massive hit for self-custody investors.
Because the firmware security flaw remains unpatched, anyone using those affected wallet models is at extreme risk until their funds are moved to safe storage.
That is a terrifying scenario for hardware wallet owners. To round out the business segment on a much lighter note, the global box office just saw a historic weekend.
The new Spider-Man movie generated an incredible $927 million in global ticket sales during its opening weekend.
That makes it the second biggest global box office debut in history, trailing only Avengers Endgame.
Coming up, critical infrastructure, cyber attacks, new lunar missions, and directed energy laser weapons heading to the U.S. Army arsenal. On the tech side, we have to start with a serious operational threat to fundamental public services right here in the U.S.
A major cyber attack targeting critical water infrastructure has affected operational utilities across at least 7 U.S. states.
7 states is a major footprint for a physical utility breach.
Absolutely. When hackers can breach digital control systems for public drinking water, government security agencies take it to the highest alert level.
On the software security front, developers and IT administrators are dealing with 2 alarming new attack vectors today.
First, the Greatness Phishing-as-a-Service platform has updated its tools to include device code phishing.
This new feature specifically exploits OAuth 2.0 grants to bypass multi-factor authentication systems.
That means cybercriminals can hijack enterprise accounts without ever triggering standard credential alerts or two-factor prompts. That is a huge headache for enterprise security teams.
And the second threat is hitting open-source software packages. A credential-stealing worm linked to the Kiev NPM package has poisoned hundreds of open-source libraries.
It actually planted backdoor hooks specifically targeting Claude Code and VS Code. It shows just how fragile the open-source software supply chain can be when a foundational package gets compromised.
Switching gears to space exploration, NASA has published significant new updates on its moon-based development program.
NASA is targeting the lunar South Pole for long-term scientific research and human operations.
As part of that effort, commercial partners including Blue Origin and Firefly Aerospace are working on dedicated cargo landers, with deliveries planned by 2028.
And NASA is not just building landers. They also just delivered the NavCube 3 mini payload to Intuitive Machines for integration into their Altus 1 satellite.
That payload is a crucial step toward establishing a dedicated commercial lunar communications and navigation infrastructure for all future space missions.
It is amazing to see the lunar economy moving from theory to real hardware deliveries. Though not every object heading to the moon was planned that way.
Right. The spent SpaceX rocket booster is currently on a high-speed, 400-mile-per-hour collision course with the lunar surface.
The impact is expected to leave a crater roughly 16 feet deep on the moon.
Closing out tech, the U.S. Pentagon is finalizing a landmark contract to officially bring directed energy defense technology onto the battlefield.
This deal will officially add operational laser weapons to the U.S. Army's active military arsenal, moving lasers out of decades of experimental research and straight into real field deployment.
Coming up, historical records at the box office and remembering figures in sports and music. Finishing up today in sports and culture, that box office momentum for Spider-Man Brand New Day just keeps shattering records.
It really does. Spider-Man Brand New Day officially crossed $1 billion at the global box office in just 6 days.
That makes it the second fastest movie in history to hit the billion-dollar milestone, proving the superhero genre still holds massive commercial power worldwide.
In combat sports, the mixed martial arts community is mourning a devastating loss today.
UFC flyweight contender Alan Nascimento has passed away at the age of 34 after suffering an apparent heart attack in his sleep.
That is so tragic. Tributes have been pouring in from across the MMA world for the veteran Brazilian fighter and his family. In entertainment news, Netflix has officially set the release date and shared the first-look photos for Monster: The Lizzie Borden Story.
This expands Netflix's hit biographical crime drama anthology series, taking on one of the most famous historical crime cases in American history.
And finally, in Dublin, prominent figures from the music world gathered to pay their respects to Oscar-winning songwriter Glenn Hansard.
Musicians including Bono and Eddie Vedder were among the mourners attending Hansard's funeral, celebrating his incredible legacy across indie music and film score history.
What a touching tribute to an unforgettable artist.
From high-stakes currency interventions and record-breaking markets to urgent AI safety talks, today shows just how fast global finance, tech, and policy are moving together.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care, everyone.